Hey guys and gals, welcome to JHart Modelworks and the third update on the Porsche 928 S4 by Italeri. In this video, we finish off the body and we begin to turn our attention to the chassis. Welcome to my workbench, let's get started. Alright guys, so yes, this is going to be another video mostly about the body. I understand this is the third video in a row. I promise this will be the last one though, as with the exception of the hood ornament, the body is done. Like I mentioned in the last video, there was a lot of dust in the roof. Actually, there was some dust all over the body. There were several spots in the hood, some spots on both sides, and that has all been polished out. I got a brand new Dremel 4000 in a couple of days ago, and what I did was I started with dry sanding with some Tamiya 2000 grit sponge and some Tamiya 3000 grit sponge. I usually start at the 2000, and if I can't get it out, then I'll drop down to the 1000 and then sand back up. The Tamiya sanding sponges don't like to be wet sanded. You get the sanding sponges wet and the sanding material comes off almost instantly. So I dry sand with these, and what I do is I go one direction with one grit, I'll go the next direction on the next grit, and once I get through with the 3000 grit, I move to a 3M Trizact 5000 grit sponge. These are a little pricey. I get there's a little rectangular sheet. It was like $7 or $8 I think for a rectangular sheet, but this is really good stuff. With the Trizact you can wet sand, and instead of going back and forth or side to side, you can go in a circle with it, so it kind of gets all the 3000 scratches as well as kind of picking up some of the 2000 grit scratches as well. And after that, what I do is I use some Meguiar's rubbing compound, which will be this stuff. I want to move to the UMP polishing compounds, but with the shipping from the UK the way it is right now, it's just way too expensive. It will be like $20 something to ship a $20 set of polishing compounds. I'm looking at Hobby World USA. I've talked to Matt over there. Matt Boyles is a great guy. Check him out at hobbyworldusa.com for, he has all sorts of awesome products over there, and he's very responsive. If you hit him up on like Facebook Messenger, and he's usually real responsive, responds in an hour or two. He's awesome guy, absolutely awesome customer service. So I was talking to Matt, and he said he's going to look into getting them in. He doesn't know when he'll be able to do that though. So for right now, I'm still using the Meguiar's compounds. So what I will do is I will put some compound down on the body. I'll use a foam sanding bit. Pick these up from the Scale Modeling channel, and he sent them over, but you can find them on Amazon. I use the orange one, which seems to be a coarser grit sponge, with the rubbing compound, and sometimes I'll polish with the polishing compound, and I'll use the black ones, which are kind of a milder pad, but it doesn't really seem to work out very well. So when I do the polishing, I usually do the polishing compound by hand, but for the rubbing compound I use the rotary tool on the lowest possible speed, and I use one of these pads. I'll put some compound down on the surface that I want to rub, and I'll also prep the pad so that I don't instantly hit a dry pad on there. And when you're using the rotary tool, don't stop in one spot ever. You want to keep moving constantly. You don't have to be rhythmical, you don't have to follow a certain pattern. I'll find a spot, I'll start in a spot, and I just kind of move in random directions until I make sure I have everything polished out. And I go until it looks like the polish is coming off. Not the paint, mind you, just the polish. So I'll have some white polish all over here, and when I start seeing the color, I'll go ahead and stop, and then I finish it off with a microfiber cloth removing the rest of that compound. After I do a round of rubbing compound with the machine, I will sometimes follow up with a second round of rubbing compound and do it by hand. And then when I go to do the polishing compound, I polish that by hand almost always, because like I said, I get a better result out of it than I do with the machine for some reason. But this came out really well. There are no dust bits that I can find. There's a spot on each side of this hood, but those are supposed to be there. It's part of the molding. All the sanding divots and all the dust bits and whatnot came out really well. It's very smooth, and this has got to be the best body that I have done so far. So after doing the compounding and getting it all polished out and nice and smooth, I went ahead and I masked off the window trims, which is very fiddly. You want to get the window trims, but you don't want to get these side bits, and this front cowling is not a black part, it is body color, so you've got to mask that off as well, which is kind of tricky seeing as this is very delicate and the hood's been cut loose. I have actually broken that, but it fits together, it just kind of presses together, so I figure when I go and glue the window glass in, that will probably strengthen that, so I shouldn't have too much trouble. Again, on the sides, this is all very fiddly masking, but I was able to get it done. So what I did basically is I started on the back and I did the back trim, and then I went and I did the sides and the front. But I did both sides at the same time, but I did the front and the back separate. Followed that up by doing these side indicators, which are some Tamiya LP48 sparkling silver. And then on top of that, I did some, I forget what the X number is, but it's the acrylic clear orange. And that came out really well. Usually it gets real dull, but I thinned it with a little bit of the Tamiya lacquer thinner with retarder, and it came out really smooth this time instead of having that rough, grainy finish that I'm used to seeing. After doing the side indicators, I went ahead and knocked out the front turn signal indicators. And the rear taillights. Now all the trim in between here is molded into the outer part of the clear plastic. When I was first looking at this, I thought these were going to be really difficult to mask off, because usually taillights are, especially when they're 3 different colors. But what I did was, with the grooves molded in like that, it was actually really easy to just mask off the red and the white at the same time and just spray the 2 orange pieces. And then once that dried, I pulled off the masking and just masked off the entire top and sprayed the red. I then went and hit the whole thing with some aqua gloss, and that gives us the much shinier reflective finish, as well as protecting it for the next step, which is where I went in and I hit the molded in grooves with some Tamiya black Panaline access color. And after the access color, I went around the outside edges with some just flat black, just to simulate the molding trim, like the rubber trims around there, and those came out really well. Got our door locks, push button on the back, and we went ahead and glued in, because the clear parts go in through the bottom, I went ahead and put the spoiler on, and that wraps up the body. The hood ornament is still being shipped. It's coming in from the Czech Republic. I think it's in New York right now, so that should be in here sometime real soon, as well as the brake calipers. which will be hopefully in the next update, maybe an update after that. So those should be in real soon. And with the body wrapped up, I went ahead and turned my attention to the chassis. I've seen several reference pictures where it's just gray at the bottom or black at the bottom, but I've also seen some reference pictures that show the bottom of the undercarriage in body color. So what I chose to do was prime it in black and spray it body color, but not do the 2K clear, so you get kind of the matte color on the undertone. There are no color callouts. The instructions are almost humorous how few parts actually have color callouts on them. I would say less than half the parts in the instructions have any kind of color callout on them at all. So looking at the references pictures, I was able to find, like I said, I saw pictures where the body color was done. I've also found that this piece is a kind of a flat black. I went with a semi-gloss black or LP5, and I went ahead and hit this front trim as well, as several of the reference pictures I saw show this to be kind of a plastic or a, well, it looks like a plastic to me. So I went ahead and went with the LP5 on this also. As far as reference pictures go, eBay Motors is your friend. eBay Motors, Auto Trader, these sites, you can find a bunch of pictures. Most cars you can find a lot of reference pictures. And if you were to go up to some guy on the street and say, dude, I love your car, I'm building a model, can I take pictures? They'll look at you like you're kind of crazy. But when they go to post their car online, they will take pictures from every angle possible. So you can usually get a lot of neat stuff in references from those two sources. So those are definitely good places to look at. I show that this is a black piece and there's kind of a metal covering on this one corner. So I went ahead and just used some bare metal foil coupled with a couple of ProTech Photo Etch bolt heads. I have a couple of plans. I've seen some brake lines in here and maybe a fuel line. I'm not entirely certain, but I've seen some lines that run in here. I plan to add those in as some detail with some, probably some of this 28 gauge electrical wire. That's kind of in the future, as well as a few other things that I want to do. There's a heat shielding that comes right in here in this drive shaft tunnel. And what I'm looking for, I quit smoking in 2005. So I'm looking for that foil paper that comes on the inside of the cigarette packs, has like a perfect texture to it to simulate the heat shielding. So I want to get a hold of some of that and kind of do a heat shield in here. We'll see if I can get a hold of it. And then, like I said, there's just kind of a few things on the chassis and we'll move on. So the plans for the next video are going to be to do the engine and maybe the front suspension. Then the transmission and rear suspension are in the back. I don't know if I'm going to get all of that in one video. Chances are I may just do the engine or the engine and some of the suspension. Kind of depends on whether stuff comes in as well in the mail. So like I said, I am waiting on the brakes. And I'm planning on doing a full video just on modifying the brakes from the stock brake parts. I got a couple of plans on the brakes that I think will turn out really nice. And then after so that maybe one, maybe two videos, we'll see. And then after that, it should be interior and then final assembly. If you like what you see, please click the like button. Leave me comments in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of my comments. I love interacting with you guys. Send me tips, suggestions, stuff you'd like to see in upcoming videos, things of that nature, whatever. I love getting feedback from you guys. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please consider clicking the subscribe button and clicking that bell notification icon so you can be notified when I release new videos. And as always, thank you for watching. Keep modeling and have a great day.